I don't know what kind of political tricks it is they're trying to pull out there, but when it comes to science, it better be the truth! In this brief vignette, we will examine what makes Earth's temperature habitable. The average temperature is resultant of how much heat comes from the sun and other sources, and how much heat is radiated away. The big question about determining the insignificance of human recycled CO2 on Earth's climate is exactly how much of the temperature rise that makes Earth habitable is due to greenhouse gases. We have now very accurately proportioned the effects among the greenhouse gases between water vapor, CO2, and so on. Water vapor is 97% of the greenhouse effect, and CO2 plus all the rest are 3%. So how do we determine the total greenhouse effect? Since we know Earth is about 33 degrees C warmer than a massless planet without atmosphere at our distance from the sun, and it's about 30 degrees C warmer than our moon, then we can add up the known and measurable effects, and the greenhouse effect is the remainder. We'll look first at tidal warming. Tidal warming contributes about 0.05 watts per square meter of the Earth's surface. Likewise, the heat conducted through the mantle from our internal nuclear furnace is about 0.05 watts. The total amount of heat liberated from all volcanoes and the total heat liberated from human consumption of fuels are both also about 0.05 watts. So the total amount of contribution, other than the sun, is about 0.2 watts per square meter. Compared to the roughly 1,000 watts from our sun, these are not significant amounts. The one significant to the gentle warming of our home Mother Earth is the thermal flywheel effect. And how does this work? Firstly, a rational, sincere person would never be chastised for listening and logically considering this concept. A close contribution from the thermal flywheel effect will be calculated by our best minds, I'm sure. And of course, the term best minds excludes all but those who are clinically objective in their life's work. The thermal flywheel effect is the heating of the Earth, of air and water by the sun during the daytime and carrying it over to the nighttime. On Earth, this thermal flywheel effect and the greenhouse effect holds the day-night temperature ranges down to what we experience, swings of roughly 10 degrees. Were it not for the thermal flywheel and greenhouse effects, our nighttime temperatures would drop to nearly absolute zero. We can see the effect of heat being carried to the dark side by a simple calculations. For instance, imagine a simple disk in space, our distance from and angled facing the sun, with an albedo of 10%, with no mass, no atmosphere, and with a hot side not carrying heat to the dark side. The daytime side temperature immediately becomes the temperature necessary to radiate away all of the heat gained from the sun. So, with the front totally insulated from the back, the daytime temperature is 100 degrees C, and the nighttime temperature is minus 270 degrees C, 3 degrees above absolute zero. So the average temperature is 188 degrees Kelvin, or about minus 85 degrees C. In a second scenario, if we could carry half of the heat from the front and half from the back, which would of course only happen with a very rapidly spinning planet and no day-night temperature differences, both the front and back sides would be the same temperature, both sides radiating away half of the heat which impinged on the sunny side. And then the front and dark sides would both be 41 degrees C. A 126 degree temperature rise. Over the case of all of the heat radiating from the front and none being carried to the back. This rise is quite a startling increase in average temperature, not considering any greenhouse effect whatsoever. Now, of course, to carry these results to a planet like our Earth, we need to consider gradually heating on the sunny side. We need to consider it's a ovoid sphere shape and not a simple disk. Rise is quite a startling gradual cooling on the night side due to the flywheel effect and the rotation speed of the Earth. We have indisputable evidence of the thermal flywheel effect here on our Earth, as the hottest temperatures of the day are not at noon, but are several hours later. And that's because the mass of the atmosphere and the Earth and of the water takes time to heat during that input from the sun. In the same disk experiment, we can easily show by application of a mild re-reflector simulating the most pessimistic estimates of the greenhouse effect that its total effect on average temperatures is really infinitesimal. Many great minds have already stated the greenhouse effect is 97% water vapor, leaving 3% for carbon dioxide and everything else. The human part of the recycled CO2, when we consider this small greenhouse effect and the huge flywheel effect, the human CO2 effect is virtually infinitesimal. With all due respect, Al Gore is a champion's champion, but he needs to champion a cause which is a real threat to humans and all of nature. That is, how do we deflect an asteroid? How do we keep a megavolcano from becoming another mass extinction? Al Gore shouldn't just be mesmerized by the vast, vast value that productivity and industry creates for all of humanity. If we're going to control CO2 for some asinine reason, we need to do it on a country-by-country basis. The actual benefit of more CO2 is that crops are much more productive. With today's expanding global population, we need that extra crop growth. In the U.S., for instance, we are a net carbon dioxide absorber. We sink more CO2 here in the U.S. than we generate. So we're okay here. Other countries are not so fortunate. If we're going to control CO2, we need to do it on a nation-by-nation basis because we do not have and shall never have a global government. These images show only one of the many attempts, but every single one has been devastating to humanity, and no, computers will not make it possible. There have got to be some of you out there in internet land who have good ideas for making cheaper energy. Our civilization's entire progress has been based on energy costs of roughly $20 per barrel. That's our progress over the centuries for improved food, improved medical care, improved housing, improved transportation, and improved education. With our present energy costs about 4 times that amount, we're quickly moving backwards towards the Stone Age. Thank you in advance for your contribution to society.